Good to catch up with Lindsay Davenport again. She was ranked number one in the world 4 times, the winner of 6 Grand Slam titles, 3 singles and 3 doubles. She does color commentary work on the Tennis Channel, and she's got 2 kids. How do you have enough time in a day, Lindsay?
I wish I knew sometimes. I've just been, this summer especially, just been trying to plug along, but I love doing everything that I do. Obviously, I love being a mom. I love tennis, and I feel really fortunate that I'm still able to do both and work and still be involved in my great sport.
Lindsay, let me ask you about, when I saw you the last time, it was right after you had your first child, and now you've got a second child, and I'm just wondering how that affects the highly skilled professional athlete as far as their preparation, kind of their focus as well, because I remember talking to John McEnroe after he had a family, and he said, Ron, he said, when I was single and didn't have any kids or a wife to worry about, he said, all I did was think about tennis. He said, but after I got a family, I thought, well, one of the kids has a cold. We got to travel here. Have you noticed that same thing, having a family yourself now and still trying to play competitive tennis?
Oh, absolutely. It just seems, I think back and think, why didn't I know it was so easy when it was just me to worry about? When you're in the height of playing, you still think everything is so complex. And yet, in reality, it's quite simple. You just have yourself to worry about, and your tennis and your well-being. All of a sudden, you get married, someone else to worry about, and then when you start having kids, you never think about yourself. So it's been an interesting transition. And I tell the players that I do know now, I'm like, oh, you guys just worry about yourselves now. You'll be successful because there'll be a time when you won't have time to worry about yourself.
One thing I know about the professional athlete is that there is a pride factor, pride of performance, and I'm just wondering, knowing that you want to play at the top of your game, how hard is it to do it now that you've got other things on your mind?
It's almost impossible, and that's why I pretty much don't play. I played some World Team Tennis over the summer. I played 2 doubles tournaments, and it started off one as a favor to one of my good friends who's a tournament director, and that's really all the competitive tennis I'll be playing. I like to go around and do charity stuff and exhibition stuff and do my TV work, but the days of trying to practice at home, get ready, travel around the world, play tournaments, I'm 34 as well. It's just those days are long gone.
One thing that I know about coaches, that when they've stepped away from the game and maybe gone up into the broadcast booth, that they see the game a little bit differently. You already mentioned that you're doing work for the Tennis Channel. What do you see about the game when you call it from that standpoint compared to being down on the court and actually playing it?
Well, it's interesting. I didn't know that I would enjoy the TV work as much as I have, but I do love the sport. When you're calling a match or you're calling the sport for TV, you have to keep an eye out for certain things, and it really opens up the sport in a whole different light. Trying to break down patterns, trying to really break down a player's shot, whether it be a forehand or a serve. And when I was playing and I would quickly watch a match to try and, scout a little bit, it would be maybe a game or two, just get a glimpse of the player and move on. And now, you spend a whole match, whether that be an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, really critiquing every single part of a player's game. You really have to have a keen eye and pay close attention for the entire match.
Is it easier to play the game looking at it from that perspective as compared to being actually a participant in a match?
I think like most athletes, I prefer to be a participant. I know my limits now, and now I would play if I was out there, so I understand it. But playing out on the court, I always loved, and trying to figure it out on your own out there was something I took a lot of pride in.
I mentioned about winning 6 Grand Slam titles and 3 singles and 3 doubles, and I've often talked to golfers about this. It's one thing to win a PGA stop. It's another thing to win one of the big tournaments, the Big Four. Talk to me a little bit from a tennis perspective, the difference between just a stop on the tour compared to winning one of the Grand Slam titles.
Well, there's just everything is so magnified when you do get to a Grand Slam. All of a sudden we're talking about 14 now, some Grand Slams, 15-day events. That's a long time in one spot, one court, one hotel. The regular tour events are actually, much less media, much less spotlight on the players. Most players are a lot more relaxed. You get to a Grand Slam, you get all the press, you get all the other players, more money involved, more ranking points. It was just a lot more stress, and I think every player that comes through at the end of a Grand Slam, it is a very grueling 2 weeks. Has a certain amount of pride that they were able to do that.
Is one of the changes the fact that players, the top players in particular, Lindsay, that they take some time off before one of the majors in order to prepare themselves properly?
Oh, absolutely. It does depend a little bit if a player hasn't had a lot of matches going in, it may have been injured at a previous time of year, and they're looking to really fine-tune their match skills. Most men, you'll see, will almost always, at least most men that are favorites to win a Grand Slam, will take the week off. To play 3 out of 5 sets over the 2 weeks is so physically taxing, a lot of them like to rest up that week before. The women, not such a big deal. I mean, we're so used to playing 2 out of 3 sets and then to have a day off that you can recover pretty easily. I would like to play the week before because the thought of being in one city for possibly 21 days, if you get there a week early to start practicing, I thought I would just almost lose my concentration by the end.
It always seems that there's an ebb and flow when it comes to tennis in countries. I know the United States that for a period of time had most of the top players, and then, of course, maybe Russia recently or Eastern Europe as well. Where are we in the United States as far as top women players?
Ooh, not good still. I mean, it's, if you look back historically, we've always been at the top of the game. There's always been 1, 2, maybe even 3 players in the top 10. And since Venus and Serena broke onto the scene in, 97, 98, not a new American has broken into the top 10. Now, that's pretty crazy. I mean, we're so accustomed in this country with Tracy Austin, Chris Evert, myself, Jennifer Capriati, Monica. I mean, the list goes on. And no one's been able to do that in 13 years. We hope that that's changing. We have a couple of young girls in their teenage years that are doing pretty well, but it's so tough to say if will they be top 10 or will they be Grand Slam champions.
What do you think the legacy for the Williams sisters will be to this game?
Oh, amazing. I mean, if it wasn't for them, seriously, women's tennis, especially in the United States, would be all but dead. And you go around the world, and there's just a few players that could sell out a match without even worrying about the opponent. And Venus and Serena are probably 2 of the 3 or 4 that we have. They're so internationally well known, so popular, even more well known for not even being a tennis player, just for being who they are. I think Serena has a very good chance of going down as the best ever. The next 2 years will really determine that for her, how many more Grand Slam titles she's able to win. Is she able to stay at one a little bit longer? And I think Venus will be remembered as the real leader of the sport starting in the 2000 years. She's been the top player that's been the one speaking out for women's tennis and for what we're trying to accomplish and equal prize money, and she's really done a great job with that.
One of the things I like about them is that I don't see them as tennis machines. They have their own individual personalities. They have their interests outside of tennis that I have to applaud them for maintaining that interest because I think that's their outlet. That's their balance. That's where they are able to reach some creative areas that really give them the complete person as well as the tennis player. Is that part of their secret and their success, do you think, aside from their talent?
Absolutely. I mean, everyone was giving them a hard time. I mean, almost, myself included, in the beginning of their careers when they're late teens, early 20s, and you think, okay, these are the peak years for an athlete. They should really be playing all they can. And they were very outspoken, like, we'll play when we're healthy, we'll play when we want to, but we want to be around the sport for a long time. And then it was so ironic that you had Kim Clijsters and Justine Henin retiring from the game at ages 24 and 25 because it got too much for them. They each took about 18 months to 2 years off the game and are now coming back. But it's been Venus and Serena that are still playing. Venus is now 30. Serena's going to be 29 right after the U.S. Open. And, they're still out there. They show no signs of slowing down. They've always had other interests, which has kept their love of tennis alive. And they show up to play. It's pretty, I respect it quite a lot.
Is women's tennis trying to project that as a path in order to maintain the balance so that they don't have burnout early on like you just talked about with Justine?
It's such a tricky deal for the tour because, if you do have a 19-year-old superstar, you obviously want them playing and supporting your tour. But I think we've learned from past cases, Tracy Austin, Andrea Jaeger, Jennifer Capriati, a couple, more recently, Nicole Vadisova, maybe not on as large a scale, but, these players burn out at a very young age. So it's much better to have them play fewer tournaments in the beginning and kind of work their way into the tour so they're still around from ages 25 to 30, 35.
When you look at what you've been able to do in this sport, what is it that means the most to Lindsay Davenport?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't think about it in those terms. I mean, I'm very proud of myself for getting to number one and winning Grand Slams, but I also feel like I was able to have a long career that I was able to handle myself with a fair amount of class throughout the years. It got debatable at times, but it's not an easy life. It's not an easy path to take, but I feel like I came out of it pretty normal and relatively unscathed.
You know, it's funny, but I have talked to athletes that were outstanding in their sport, whether it be football, and I think even Jerry Rice said it when he was inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame. I wish I had enjoyed it more while I was doing it. Do you look back and feel that way at times?
At a certain point, when I was at the very top, I wish I had enjoyed it more. But that's really when you're the most vulnerable, so you have to be even tougher. And trying to stay at the top is not easy, and more spotlight on you and more obligations come with it. It is tough to enjoy it at that time. I was very lucky when, after I had my son, I still came back and played a little bit. And there I really enjoyed it. I felt like I've had a great career. I love the sport. I'm so lucky I'm able to play now, even in my early 30s. So it went in streaks, but certainly I wish the path of winning a Grand Slam and getting to number one had been more enjoyable while I was going through it every day.
I know that you're coming out to the San Francisco Bay Area on October the 2nd to play in one of those charity events that you mentioned that you enjoy playing in. You've been out here and played at Harbor Point before. Tell me a little bit about that competition, because it's not, it's really an interesting format.
Well, it's great. The Esurance Classic, Rosie Casals has been running it for years and years, and the first time I was up there was in the fall of '07, and my son came with me. He was 3 months old, and we had such a great time. Very excited to be coming back this year. Different group of players this year, and we always play World Team Tennis style formats. And then Sunday's the real fun when they bring out the teams from Cal and Berkeley. I actually have more fun doing that than I do on Saturday playing against the pros. It's fun to play the college players and see what level they're at and see where older pros are at.
I was just going to ask you that. When you take a look at the women from Cal and the women from Stanford and see their level of competition, the way they approach the game, the way they hit the ball, their technique and everything, what is it that you see comparing it to when you were coming up?
Well, everyone always asks, especially now that I do more TV work, okay, what's your opinion on this player? What's your opinion on that player? And it's very hard to tell when you're just watching them. But in this instance, we actually get to hit with them. And so you get to tell the pace of their shots, their strokes, the spins that come off. But mostly, especially with the ladies from the teams, they ask such great questions. Like what's it like on the tour? How's it rising in the ranks? What's it like between the Challenger circuit and the Pro Tour and playing a Grand Slam? And that's where I feel like a lot of times I'm the most help. For girls that are trying to make it on the Pro Tour, I feel like I could give them pretty honest, fair answers, not sugarcoating it, and try and help them if I can, even though we're only with them for 4 or 6 hours, but do my best in that regard.
I'm just wondering, can women's tennis do more in the mentoring process? Because, you're absolutely right about that. I've been there on the sidelines, and I've heard them talking to you and the other players, asking those type of questions. And I always thought to myself, I'm wondering why that's not done at a developmental age that would give them a better idea about what they can expect when they get out there on the tour, if that's the direction they take.
Yeah, they try. On the WTA Tour, there is a mentoring-type program. But I even for a player like me, they haven't actually come to me to do that yet. So I'm not exactly sure of how it works. It's interesting. I'm very close with a girl that is now 18, Coco Vandeweghe. She just had a great win in San Diego against the top 10 player. And I got to know her a couple of years ago from my coach. And I think sometimes you just find someone that reminds you of yourself or someone you admire or respect and can help along. And I think the world of Coco, and I feel like I am mentoring her now. She stays with us sometimes. I hit with her, trying to help her kind of break through on the Pro Tour, and it's actually been really, really enjoyable, but partly because I really like her as a person. So that's really the key with mentoring. I think it would be really successful if you have the right fit.
Lindsay, I want to thank you. I have always enjoyed our conversations. You've always been insightful and thoughtful. And, of course, the times that we have been together, like we were the last time when you were out in the San Francisco area, I enjoyed that as well. I will see you in October when you come back out.
Oh, I look forward to it.
And congratulations on your fine career. And, again, take care of those two little ones. I look forward to seeing them as well.
Thank you.
Lindsay Davenport with us. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, she was ranked number 1 in the world in singles 4 times. She won 6 Grand Slam titles, 3 singles championships, and also 3 doubles championships as well. We'll take a break as we continue with more of you and America's Sports Talk Show.